I appreciate every facet of life, right? But I also believe life is the best classroom. And so I'm very cognizant of situations, circumstances, and I firmly believe, as Sean stated, the one thing we all have in common as people is we all will face some level of adversity. And so something pretty cool happened last week when I was in Seattle, and I'm going to get to that. But first, I want to explain to you the card that I have in my hand. In my house, I have a bowl, right? And I call it a quote bowl, right? Because I believe it's very important before you start your day to set the environment, to set the mood. Because you can get up and just start running, and then you run out of the door, life hits you in the face, and before you know it, you woke up, you were on top of the world, and now the world is on top of you. And so every single morning, me and my kids and my wife, we go to this bowl, and we grab a quote card, and we read it, right? And we put it in whatever bag we have, and we take it out of the door with us, and when I travel, I keep them with me as well. And today, the quote says, "Do the best you can until you know better, then when you know better, do better," by Maya Angelou. But I was in Seattle, and a guy came to pick me up last week, and, you know, when he picked me up, it was around midnight. And so we probably said maybe 3 or 4 words to each other. It was late, and when we got to the hotel, I thanked him, and he said to me, "I'll be the guy that's coming back to pick you up in the morning to take you to your event." We talked about the time. I said, "Okay, cool, I'll see you in the morning." And so when I came down the next morning, guy stood outside his car, we spoke. We get in the car, and we're riding for 5 minutes. And I look in the mirror, and I can see the guy is crying. And so as I'm sitting in the back seat, I say to him, "Is everything okay?" And he shakes his head kind of like, "Man, like you're not going to believe it," right? And he said, "My normal job, I don't drive, but my buddy owns the company." And he said whenever he gets overwhelmed, he might call me and say, "Hey man, can you cover a shift for me?" And he said, usually I'll tell him, "No, I'm cool," right? Because you meet people and sometimes it's just not the situation. And he said, I hadn't drove for him in probably 11 months. And he said, for some reason, when he called me yesterday, I was like, cool, I'll take it. And he said, I looked you up after I dropped you off, and I saw this video about redirection, right, at 3 in the morning. And he said, it gave me purpose. He said, but the reason I'm crying is because I just lost my wife. Right? And when he said it, I thought to myself, like, how do you smile after that? Right? Because I know every single day I look at my wife and what my wife means to me. And even when I lost my grandmother, I thought to myself, would I ever be able to smile and laugh again? And so I posed a question to him. How did you get up and simply put one foot in front of the other and walk out of the door and continue your routine? He said, well, I got 2 daughters. He said, before I get to that, I want to tell you something, because it wasn't like it was all good the whole process, and my wife had been sick for over 30 years, right? And he said, we got to a point in the sickness to where we hit a rough patch. And he said, she would scream at me, I would scream at her, and I felt as if I was trapped in a situation, and the Creator knew I couldn't leave the situation. And so I would say to the Creator, you know I can't leave, and my wife is sick. You know I can't go anywhere. You know I can't leave her because she's my wife, and I can't go anywhere, so I got to sit here and I got to deal with it. And I resented the situation. I resented my wife. I resented the adversity, and we found ourselves in a point to where I ended up leaving. And he said, I went to stay with one of my buddies, and I'm in the mirror one morning, and I'm brushing my teeth, and he said, I'm saying to myself, right, for better or for worse, yeah, things have gotten pretty worse. For richer or for poor, yeah, we're pretty poor. And he said, through sickness and health. And he said, he stopped and said, man, I haven't finished. And he went, he packed his bags, walked out of the door, got back to his house. When he walked in the door, he said, his wife said to him, what are you doing here, you prig? And he said to her, I'm going to be here. I'm not going anywhere. He said, so either we can figure out how to make it work, how to deal with it, adjust, or we can sit here and we could just be miserable and mad because a situation has happened that's out of our control and we didn't expect it. Like, I believe in life, you got 2 separate people. You got champions, right? And they go through things in life that are self-inflicted. They bring it upon themselves. They get through it. They say, man, I got through it. And then you got warriors. Right? They walk outside, the wind hits them, knocks them down, they pick up their stuff, they adjust, and they get moving, and they deal with the adversity that they didn't expect. They set their perspective right, and they figure out a way to embrace it and add value to every environment that they go into and every person's life that they come in contact with. And he said when he walked in the house and he said an amazing thing happened. The environment shifted and him and his wife, whole situation changed. And I said, if you could do one thing earlier, what would it be? Like, I'm more concerned with the thought process of a person. Like when a person says something or does something, I want to understand what was your thought process and what brought you to that place. Like with my son, he plays basketball, right? He's 7 years old, right? And so I know everybody in here knows when 7-year-olds play basketball, as soon as they get the basketball, mommy starts screaming, coach starts screaming, spectators start screaming, refs start screaming. And so the kid usually don't shoot. He just in a circle, right? And then he'll do something and they'll say, why did you do that? It's 50 people screaming at him. And so I'll say to him, son, tell me what were you thinking? I just want to know your train of thought. And so I said to the guy, what would you have done earlier and what were you thinking? He said, I'm glad you asked the question. If I could do anything different or earlier, I would have embraced the adversity and I would have shifted my attitude a lot earlier, and I believe I would have been a better man as a result of it. And the thing about life, I ask myself every Sunday a couple of questions. Right? And the questions go, if this was the last week of my life, how would I live it? If this was the last week I had to be a father to my 2 children, what type of father would I be? If this was the last week I had to be a husband to my wife, what type of husband would I be? If this was the last week I had to serve, like with the work I feel I've been called to do, like, you know, people look at it as motivation, and I get pretty riled up because I feel I've been blessed to be able to do it. But at the core of what I do, I firmly believe I've been trusted to serve. I'm a servant at heart. I love people because of something that happened in my life a long time ago with people that changed the trajectory of my life, and people coming into my life seeing things in me when I couldn't see it in myself. And it affected me in such a way that I still live my life according to that, even till this day. And I'm a man, and I got 2 children and a whole family. But it happened when I was 7 years old. And so when I ask myself these questions, we do work at the homeless shelters, and an amazing thing happens, right? It's a transitional program. And so you come in, you got to have a job, you got to have a start date, exit date, you got goals, dreams, and aspirations, right? And so it's a staff there. We've adopted 3 homeless shelters. And so I usually do work with the children, teenagers. And I ask them one question. What do you want out of this thing called life? Like when it's all said and done, right? When they get through telling you how cute, how cool you are, right? How strong you are. Like when it's all said and done, what do you want from this thing called life? Number 1 answer, I want to be rich, Mr. Johnson. I said, I hope you get it. I said, I hope you go out and you crush it. You make an honest living, because if I was coming from under a bridge, I never want to struggle again either. If I watch my mother struggle on the street, I want to be rich too. I want to put food on the table too. I get it. I said, but be careful, because it's very easy in life to have achievement and not fulfillment. I said, be careful in life. It's very easy to become a public success, but behind closed doors, you're a private failure. Not because you didn't have the talent or the skill set. You had the talent and the skill set, but your talent and your skill set took you to a place that your character couldn't sustain you because you wasn't developing. And so the game of football is so lovely and beautiful for me because I always viewed it kind of like I viewed a stage. It was a platform that got provided that I could cultivate a certain level of excellence if I approached the process of it in the right way. And one day when I stopped playing it, it would be certain things I could extract from it to apply to other areas and aspects of my life to make me somewhat of a decent human being, right? Outside of the fact that I love inflicting violence on people and not get in trouble for it. Like, I loved every bit of it.